Hey everybody, happy Tutorial Thursday. How's everybody doing? Wherever you are out there on the internet today, I hope everyone is having a great day. Congratulations, Lori, on your upcoming 4th COVID shot. I also need to get mine at some point. So yeah, welcome to this tutorial. Now, it was bound to happen at some point, and it did actually happen yesterday, that I screwed up and I promoted the wrong class for last night. So for those of you who were with us last night, we did the embellished earring wires, and it was supposed to be the tutorial I'm doing right now. So the tutorial we are doing right now is the caged sphere pendant. Hi Michelle Graves, nice to see you. So this is a pendant that's designed to cage a sphere that has no hole. So as an avid collector of marbles in my youth, I am always looking for interesting things that I can do with my marble collection other than just have them in an apothecary jar up on top of my bookshelf, which is where they live. Also, I feel like if I make jewelry out of my marbles, I will always be able to say I've never lost all of my marbles, because I will always know where at least one of them is. So I've got a couple of marble options for today's pendant. I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to pick. It's probably going to be a snap decision when I get to that point. But you want a sphere that's, so some of these are smaller, some of these are larger. This is the one that I used on the sample, so that's probably about a 12 millimeter sphere. This one's bigger. This one's probably about 16 millimeters. The pendant's pretty adaptable for a variety of sizes, and of course you could use a gemstone sphere as well. It doesn't have to be a marble, but once again, since I have an excess of said marbles, I am always looking for things to do with them. So let's talk tools and supplies for this afternoon's tutorial. Okay, so you are going to need, to make the main frame of your pendant, you're going to need some 20 gauge square wire. So anybody who's not familiar with square wire, it's called square wire because it is exactly that. It has 4 flat sides and 4 corners. Comes in gauges just like your regular wire, so this is 20 gauge square. I've got gold filled here, but you can really use any type of metal that you happen to have handy. And stick there. I'm trying not to drop it on the floor. You're also going to need some 20 gauge half round wire. So I've got gold filled square wire and half round sterling wire. I like the contrast of metals. Also, it's a little easier for you guys to see when I'm demonstrating if I've got a contrast in my half round. So 20 gauge half round wire. You're going to need about 16 inches of the square and about 18 inches of the half round. And then you're just going to need your sphere. So once again, I've got several options here. I'm just going to have to decide which one is going to be the star of the show tonight. This one's actually really pretty. You can't really see, but this one's red. You can really only see it when you hold it up to the light, so I'm just not sure. I think I'm currently leaning towards this kind of speckledy blue one, but we'll see. As far as tools go, you're just going to need your basic wire working set, so that's going to be your chain nose pliers. Those are the flat ones. Your round nose pliers, which are the ones with the pointy rounded barrels, and then you are going to need a wire cutter. Alright, Lori agrees with me for the speckled blue one, so that is the winner. Speckled blue marble, you are going to be the star of the show this afternoon. So I'm going to start by cutting myself some wire. So I'm going to take my square wire, and like I said, I need 16 inches of that, and I'm going to need that in 2 8-inch pieces. So I'm going to cut myself 2 8-inch pieces of my 20 gauge square wire. Now, if you're trying to cage something that's bigger, you might want to use a little bit more. Like if I had decided on the swirly blue one that's closer to 16 millimeter, I might have wanted to do like 10 inches instead of 8 inches. But since the speckledy blue one is the same size as my sample, 8 inches per piece should be good. So I got 2 pieces, each of which are 8 inches long. And then I'm going to grab my half round wire and cut myself 18 inches of that. Now, how much half round wire you actually use on this is going to depend a little bit on how fancy you decide to be with the bail. So it's never a bad idea to have a little bit more wire on hand, just in case you find yourself with a need for extra fanciness. It's always good to have extra wire. So the first thing I'm going to do with my wire is I'm going to just take a minute and I'm going to smooth it out. So you see my wire has some kind of like kinks and bends to it. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth those out. So I'm just going to grab with my chain nose and I'm going to just pull my fingers down. And my goal is just to create a fairly straight and flat piece of wire here, like so. And if you've not worked with square wire before, the main challenge with square wire is, generally speaking, you don't, unless you are purposefully twisting it, you don't want to let it twist. So you've got flat sides. You always want to keep the flat sides together. That's more challenging than it sounds like. So especially when we're starting this first straightening step, make sure that your wire is not twisted, meaning make sure that all of your sides are still parallel to each other and that your wire's not torqued in the middle or at the end or anything like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure my wires, and I'm going to mark the center of each wire. So we had 8 inches of wire. I actually apparently cut 8.5, so that means that 4 1/4 is going to be my center. And same on this one. Alright, so now I've got a mark on each of my wires at the center point, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend these wires into a V shape, like that. So I'm going to take my pliers, I'm going to grab right next to my center marking, and I'm just going to bend. And I want a fairly open V. So anyone who was on the tutorial last night, we made a fairly closed V when we were making our ear wires. We want a little bit more of an open V for our project today. So it's actually almost, it's just a little acute, but it's almost a 90-degree angle. Repeat with your other wire. Ideally, you want these V's to be the same. So again, grab next to your mark and bend. And once again, in theory, we want these two to line up, which they do go up. Now, this is not a necessary tool, but it is a helpful tool if you happen to have one. Knocking around your workstation, which is a hemostat. Real bad. Hemostat. Hemostats are a surgical tool, but they are also super useful in bead work and specifically in wire wrapping, because what they will do, unlike a pliers, since a pliers holds like a scissors, where whatever is closest to the joint of the pliers is going to get more tension than whatever's farthest away, your hemostats will hold a lot more evenly. They still do have the same functionality, but since they clamp so tightly, it doesn't manifest quite the same way. So I'm going to line up my two little center V's, and then I'm going to clamp my hemostat on one side, like so. So notice how I've clamped my two wires so that they are parallel to each other. You don't want your wires to overlap on top of each other. And I do want to make absolutely sure my wires are lined up. There we go. Better. Okay, so now I've got that clamped. Now I'm going to grab my half round wire. And I'm going to start my half round wire by making a small bend in the end of it with my chain nose pliers. Now, half round wire is called such because it is half round. Half of it is round, the other half is flat. Okay, so it's important if you're using half round wire that you can differentiate between the round side and the flat side. And they reflect light very differently. You're always going to be coiling with the flat side on the inside. So I'm going to take my chain nose, I'm going to grab at the very end of my half round wire, and I'm going to make a little J hook just by bending it over with the flat side on the inside, like so. Now I'm going to take my frame that I'm working on, and I'm going to start wrapping my half round wire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm going to wrap all the way to the corresponding point on the other side. So I'm just going to hook that wire over my square wires and then just start. Wow, that was a terrible start. Let's try that again, shall we? I'm gonna blame the camera for that one. There we go. Okay, much better. So I'm going to hook it over and start, and then I'm just going to coil. And make sure that you're always coiling with the flat side towards your square wires, because what's going to happen is your half round wire is going to want to flip itself inside out and start coiling with the flat side on the outside, and you do not want that to happen. So I'm just going to keep coiling. Make sure you don't overlap your coils. You want your coils to be next to each other. And I'm just going to coil the whole thing past that V and up the other side. Okay, so here I am at the middle of my V, so I'm just going to keep coiling all the way up until my coil is even with where I started here. And when I'm coiling, I want to make sure to coil as tightly as possible, but not so tightly that I pull these two wires on top of each other. I want them to stay stacked. I don't want them to get overlapped, like so. So I'm just going to keep coiling. And it goes pretty fast when you have it at a good angle. Under the camera is not a great angle, frankly. Alright, so there we go. So that is the entirety of my coiling. At this point I can release my hemostat because my half round wire is holding my piece for me. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the rest of this half round. Set that aside because I'm going to need that in a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and take my, see the pokey stabby part right there? I'm going to take that, I'm just going to tuck it around and underneath. And then I'm going to give all of this wire a good crimp flat. Now that's going to kind of lock these two wires in place next to each other. Now you can see the beginning here was a little bit loose, so I'm going to go ahead and take that wire and tighten it up a bit. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to find the beginning of it, like so. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to find the beginning of it, and I'm just going to unwrap and then rewrap. And then I'm going to trim. And I'm going to push down, like so. Alright, so there is the bottom V of my setting. Now what I need to do is I need to make room for my sphere, which means that I'm going to go to the side of my setting, and I'm going to take my two wires and I'm just going to V them outward. Like that and like that. So now I've got my little V at the bottom, and then I've got my front wires coming to the front, my back wires coming to the back. And I'm going to grab my marble and I'm going to drop that in there, and now I'm going to have to possibly adjust the size of my V, because ideally what you want is you want two wires essentially holding the front of your marble and two wires holding the back of your marble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all those wires, I'm just going to put my marble in there and position everything so that it's holding it securely. Okay, so this is good right here. This is not so good. Alright, these are too wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my fingers to pinch these and bring these in a bit. So ideally what you want is you want your marble to not be able to fall out the front, not be able to fall out the back, and of course not be able to fall out the sides. That may mean you need to do a little bit of manipulating with where your wires are going. of that V. And we want symmetry here, so we're just going to go ahead and add a little bit more. So also, like, squirting your thing out is something that totally happens. The first time I learned to wire up a cabochon, I actually expelled the cabochon with such violence from my setting that it hit my teacher in the chest. It was super embarrassing, since my teacher was also my boss. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little bit more of a V here. I'm just not quite getting the hold that I want. So I've spread that out a little bit more, and we're going to try this one more time. Just drop that marble in. I think that's better. Bring your wires up to the top. And there we go. Okay, so this is good. This is held from the front, this is held from the back, this is held from the side, so we should be good to go with this. So now it's time to make our bail, and your marble, there's a really good chance it's going to fall out when you do this, so, you know, don't be alarmed. I hope you don't have to chase it very far when it does, but, you know, these things happen. So you're just going to bring everything up to the top, and you're going to give yourself a solid, you know, inch to an inch and a quarter from the top of the marble to where your pieces come together. And then you're just going to hold them all flat. See, like I said, marble's going to fall out. It's okay. We haven't secured anything yet, so that's why. Hold all of your pieces flat, and then take your round nose pliers or bail making pliers, and you're just going to fold them over to make your bail. Now, if you're using a round nose, what you want to do is kind of half fold them, and then take your pliers, turn it around, and finish the fold. The reason for that is because your round nose pliers are tapered, and that means that you're not going to make an even set of curves if you just curve it over your pliers one way. And then we're going to take our chain nose and we're going to pinch these bail wires in, like so. I realize that makes this bail look a little wonky, but we will fix that at the end. Now I've got all of the ends of my bail wires here that I can play with. But first, of course, I've got to secure everything, because right now it's just all kinds of squirrely. So I'm going to get those bail wires kind of out so that I can get a hold of them. I'm going to get my bail back in alignment, like so. And then I'm going to locate my marble and I'm going to pop it back in my setting. And this time we want it to stay. So you really want to make sure that your marble is not dead set on embarrassing you on the internet, which mine apparently is. Don't you know I'm teaching, marble? They never care that you're teaching. They really don't. They're like, nope, we're just going to be pains in the butt. Okay, so you want your marble secured in there. You want your bail wires lined up, and if they're not lining up, you can grab your round nose and just kind of get them back in line. And you're going to take the rest of your half round wire, and you're going to take that, tuck it underneath your thumb so that you're holding it securely, and once again with a flat side to the inside, we're going to wrap as tight as we can. And what we're doing here is we're basically binding this bail close. So I'm legit like pulling hard on this wire. Alright, so I'm going to go up a little bit, and then I'm going to come back down, because now I'm going to use my bail wires to create the embellishment on the top of my pendant. So I'm going to pick one of these bail wires. It doesn't really matter which one. I have a tendency to pick the longest one. Okay, so what we have are these are the ends. These 4 wires are the ends of our bail here. So I'm going to pick this longest one, and I'm going to take my half round wire. Once again, make sure it stays, and it is really squirrely. So do not trust your half round wire. It is going to want to flip around on you. Like, it literally just flipped around on me and I didn't even notice it. So make sure you've always got the flat side to the inside of the coil. Okay, so then with the flat side to the inside, I'm going to go ahead and coil up this entire long wire. The actual what? There we go. Okay, so you want to make sure you get a good tight start, and then it should pretty much, aside from the whole, your wire's going to want to just, you know, make you sad thing, it should be pretty easy. So you're just going to wrap up that entire wire. So you're just going to make a series of coils, which, goodness, apparently I cannot do at that angle. Wire, why you gotta be so squirrely? Alright, let me get this started off camera where I can see it better, and then I'll put it on camera and demo for you guys. Sorry. It's apparently just one of those days. What millimeter is my marble? It's like 10 to 12 millimeters. But you could totally do this with a bigger marble. You just need a little bit more wire. Sorry y'all, I was not expecting this to be the difficult part of the tutorial, but apparently, like I said, apparently it's that day. That day when the wire just doesn't want to behave no matter what you do. Okay, I think I got it now. So, alright, so I did go ahead and bend that up a bit, which is good. So I'm just going to coil up this entire length of wire here. Yes, Lori is our queen note taker. She's the best. She takes way better notes than me, considering that I rarely, if ever, take notes. I've recently started taking notes when making my samples after several embarrassing mistakes on stream, but I'm still not at a Lori level for note taking. I have more of an unfortunate tendency to wing it, which can be good and can sometimes not. Okay, so I'm going to continue coiling this wire all the way out to the end. And I don't want to go quite all the way to the end because I'm going to need to make a little hook with this end of the wire so that my, when I coil this, my half round wire doesn't just like shoot right off the end. So I'm going to I'm going to cut this. I don't know where the word trash came from. Cut that, press that end down, and then I'm going to take this very end of my wire, I'm just going to bend it up in a little hook and compress it, and that way this wire won't, because when we coil it, it's going to want to come off the end of the wire. So I used, I started off with 18 inches of half round Michelle. I still have about 6 inches left, so that was a little bit more than I needed for this particular project, but again, always better, far better to have too much than not enough. So I'm just taking a minute now that everything is anchored to sort of grab with my chain nose and adjust the setting a little bit more just to hold my marble a wee bit more securely. So just taking my chain nose pliers, catching that wire, and then just bringing it a little bit more up and over just so that I've got a pretty good cage going on there, which now I do. That's in there now nice and securely. So at this point, all of these wires are basically just for decoration, okay? That you can do whatever you want to with these wires. So if we're gonna be like my sample, that would be taking my, I'm gonna take my round nose pliers and put them inside there just to hold that bail. I'm gonna take this coiled wire and I'm just gonna bring it around, and then I can actually take that little hook at the end and I can make this into a little curly Q, like so. And I can just coil up all the rest of my wires as well. So if I'm gonna make a spiral with my wire, I'm just gonna take my round nose, start with a little circle, and then just bring my wire around with my chain nose, like so. And one of my favorite things to do with spirals is to put one up here on the front of my pendant to kind of cover up those wraps. So that's 1, 2. This is the end of my half round wire. That actually can get trimmed off. I don't need that anymore. And then I'm just going to take my remaining 2 wires and make them into spirals. If you wanted a cleaner look, you could absolutely cut them off. You just need to make sure your bail is secure. Alright, so there are 2 spirals, and I think I'm going to make this one go the opposite way, just for grins. Around like so, and then we're going to spiral. And last thing, if your bail's looking funky, just put your round nose in there and just kind of shove it down on your round nose. Do the same on the other side, and that should help all of your bail wires get back in line. And that is it. That is our caged sphere pendant. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me on this afternoon lunchtime stream here at twitch.tv/beading dream. Thank you so much for hanging out with this project. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope everyone had a good time. I hope you learned something fun that you want to try. It sounds like some of you did, so that's awesome. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We're here on Lovers Lane in Dallas. We are also on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus Thursdays, thanks Michelle, Thursdays at noon. That's the stream that you just finished watching, so don't forget to tune in and see our complimentary tutorials. Plus we do live merchandise sales every Wednesday and every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. So thanks everyone again so much for hanging out with us for this pendant. I'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream this evening with our soldered beaded link chain. This is a fun one. So that's going to be our Torch Thursday project for tonight. So we will see you all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream in just about 5 hours at 6 p.m. Central for that Torch Thursday class. Everyone have a great afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Bye.